Hello, Yazzers. This is Chris Conte coming to you on Sunday evening with my notes from challenge number 2 in Yaz 5, Hoopla, which is the prop challenge this season on Young Artist Showcase, brought to you by MK Blades. Special thanks to Audrey Wiziger for having this absolutely wonderful competition again, and thanks to all of the choreographers who stuck their necks out and decided to participate. And thank you for allowing me to see your work tonight. As I watched each piece in its entirety, I just jotted down a few notes without looking at the pad, and then tried to figure out what it said later, regarding how I felt about each piece. And let's just get right into it. Kate McCall. I felt that the skaters did a really good job of doing their traditional skating movements and things they did, integrating holding on to the hoops. There was one point where they all did axles together I liked a lot. And then there was one part in the middle of the piece where I really felt like the prop concept really got used, and that was a moving sculpture that went across, and the hoops were kind of integrated with arms and legs, and the whole sculpture moved across. That was a highlight for me in the piece that I really liked. Now, on the constructive criticism side, I felt like the swing music, which is very high energy and very fun, wasn't really utilized as much in the choreography. I felt like, and perhaps maybe it was the video was shot kind of far away, but I didn't see facial expressions, and swing is kind of a really upbeat, fun sort of music, and I didn't really feel like, especially because you said in the intro too that it was about fun with hoops, I really didn't get the impression that the skaters were having a lot of fun. I don't know if they were that nervous or whatever. They executed things well, but I'm not sure I really got that aspect out of how the number was put together. So I thought that it could have been a little more kind of integrated with swing movement or swing music. I mean, hoops could be moving around during swing. And then I know time can be a real restraint in this type of a competition, putting things together, but with the exception of the moving sculpture where the hoops were integrated, a lot of the movement I felt, and this was in many pieces, not just yours, the skaters were just doing traditional types of choreography or movement, holding on to a hoop, which to me is kind of a little bit missing the point of using a prop. Trying to come up with innovative ways to integrate that between the skaters is something I was particularly looking for in this challenge, because it's pretty easy to just do side-by-side movements with the hoops. So anyway, all in all, I thought it was pretty well executed. I gave it 2 stars. Moving on to Brianna. First of all, thank you for the history of the hula hoop. I found that to be some interesting factoids. Very cute to use young skaters like that, and also a risk in this kind of a competition. So I applaud your boldness in using young skaters like that, and it was a very cute idea. I think big compliment too when you use skaters that young for a number as long as you did. Keeping them focused and able to rehearse it so that they would execute it well is a real challenge, as I know. So I thought you did a really good job with that. Your skaters looked like they were well rehearsed and executed your stuff very well. I would have liked to see a little more actual skating in the piece with them. I don't know about you, but I actually use hula hoops to teach some skating skills stuff, so integrated into turns and mohawks and things like that that moves across the ice. There was a lot of dancing in place. It was really cute, but it kind of repeated as a motif throughout the piece, so I would have liked to see a little less in place and the skaters be challenged to move a little more. Again, it's all personal taste. The ending on this piece left me a little flat, with just the hoops going down, them kind of lying in them. I thought maybe you could have been a little more creative with that type of ending. But all in all, I thought it was a very good job, and it was very well executed by your skaters. I gave that one 3 stars. My next one was Katie Stewart. Katie, I thought that it had a very intriguing opening. It kind of drew me in. The music was interesting, and the skaters laying down, and it was pretty interesting. I really liked the part in the middle where they were dragging the hoop with their free legs through turns. Again, this is kind of what I was looking for creative use of the hoops, showing that you have control of the turns in your free leg and that you could use the hoop in that fashion, which is a bit more challenging, just holding on to it and doing what skaters already are trained to do. I liked the contrast between the unison work with the two skaters, and then there was a lot of counterpoint work where the skaters were doing different things at the same time that were unique to each skater, and I thought that was also really well done. So there was a lot of positives here for me, and the piece in general moved well. It skated around, it used the space well. It was also videoed very well. I know this is not a videography competition, but that does really matter in how the piece is perceived, because it's how it's being presented in this venue. And then on the other side, with the constructive criticism, it could still use more kind of innovation with the hoops as well, and I had hoped to see the skaters. I don't know if there was a particular reason you didn't have them at all interact with each other and use hoops together. There may have been a reason for that, but to me it was something that was missing or lacking in the piece. So altogether, though, I thought it was, again, well choreographed, well executed. I gave that one 3 stars. Moving along to Anna Cobb. Anna, great job. I loved this piece. Loved it. So I felt like your experience with dance and theater on ice really showed through, because the piece is lively, it's upbeat, it's fun, your skaters had facial expressions, and they executed everything and made a lot of it look very easy, but there were actually a lot of interactions where the skaters grabbed onto each other's hoops and executed steps and turns, and definitely the hoops were more integrated between the skaters, and that was a big thing for me in this challenge. It was one of the things I was really looking for, and I think because of the way the piece was executed and how fun it was, it's easy to not see a bit of the sophistication in how you put the piece together, but you really kind of went through the whole menu of a lot of different ensemble skating skills as far as choreography goes. There was movement in canon, there was movement in unison, there were jumps in unison, there were turns in canon, the hoops were used in canon, in tableau, there were interactions, sculptures that moved and turned, and you really did a lot of different techniques in that, so I really liked the variety in the piece. So overall, I think that this piece was actually one of the more sophisticated ones in the challenge for sure, and I gave it a big 4 stars. I thought it was really, really well done. Next, I had Sarah Santee. I thought it was a creative idea to glue those hoops together into a globe. That was interesting too, and then the hoops used on the outside. And I think all in all, there was a very good creative idea behind what you were doing, but then you have your concept, and then the craft is executing it. That's the craft of choreography, is creating a concept and then bringing it into the world. And in the execution, I kind of got lost a little bit. There was a skater in the middle with that around them, and I know that sometimes things are subtle, but I didn't really understand fully what the concept was. There was a skater sitting on the ice for a great deal of time in the middle. That obviously was a focal point, but then if a story was being told, I'm not sure I really understood it. I thought there was a disconnect with the song, some of the skating and some of the movement. There was a repeating dance motif too that, again, didn't really use the hoops much or rely on the hoops. And then I have it just basically here that my impression was there was a lot of dancing without the hoops in this piece, and it is a prop challenge, a hoop challenge. Kind of how you look at it, I watch a lot of stuff on the cooking channel, and there's these competitions where they give you an ingredient and you're supposed to feature the ingredient, and I felt in this piece the hoops were used more as a garnish to the piece rather than in the main part of the dish. So I think keeping that in mind for the next challenges will help you as far as how you craft your ideas into a piece that maybe would score a little better. All in all, though, I thought you might have had a very creative concept behind it. You need to work on the execution a little bit. 2 stars for that one, Sarah. Moving on to Heidi Evers. This piece, in a similar fashion, again, there's probably a very, very good creative impetus behind it, but I got very lost in the execution for me. I did really like the closing tableau position. I thought it's cool looking through the hoop, and that's what the skaters fanned out. And there was that moment they all held still, and I saw something. But in the movement of the piece, I found that I really couldn't find a concept. I didn't really understand what it was exactly that you were going for, and kind of similar to what I think a couple of the other judges might have said, I look at it as like, what would I buy a ticket to see in a show? And I don't need to be hit over the head with what a concept is, but I should be able to somewhat understand it. And in this case, I really couldn't get past a few of the things in the execution. Mainly I have here, again, it's not a videography competition, but it was shot from really far away, and something very simple like the camera was on an angle, so the whole thing was tilted. So now I'm watching skaters go on a tilt like this. I don't know if the inclined plane was meant to be kind of Dada art, but I found that some of the music edits were kind of rough change from music to music, and I appreciate that editing was attempted, but it wasn't really executed well. And again, I just couldn't really, I couldn't see the concept. So I had to give this one 2 stars. Now we have Mr. Morrow, Brunei. Morrow, you had me at legs with the synchronized swimming part in the beginning. It was hysterical. I laughed my butt off. I loved your piece. It was excellent. It reminded me of the 70s aerobics competitions that you used to have on television before your time. But one of the best things you did is with your skaters, you communicated what the concept of your piece was. You were going for the humor aspect, and you knocked it out of the park with that. The facial expressions, the way they did their characters, they looked like, the whole thing just looked like the Jazzercise infomercial it was meant to be. And I really had to rate this at 5 stars, and the reason is you understood, too, that this is a video choreography competition. So things like when you threw the hoops up and they suspended in the air and you caught them later is a video trick, but it so worked. And that showed a lot of forethought in your choreography, and that you knew it was a video situation. You know, when you know that you're choreographing something in a venue that has to be viewed by the audience around, there's one set of parameters and sort of things you follow, but when you also have to think about where the cameras are placed for the television version of the same thing you're choreographing, it showed you kind of had that high-level developed professional radar on that kind of stuff already. So I thought that that was brilliantly executed. Although the hoop stuff was quite simple, something doesn't have to be overly complicated to be very effective. And you did the whole thing well. I gave it 5 stars and laughed really hard. Terrific job. Allison Kimmel. This one again, I had a lot of problems with the hoops, how they were integrated. It just kind of looked like 2 skaters that were goofing around with what do they normally do, but while holding hoops. The hoops weren't necessarily a focal point of creating or causing movement. So this one again kind of lost to me the main ingredient of the challenge. The one thing that did strike me is that for the camera being shot from where it was and using the entire NHL ice surface, you guys were all over the rink. You certainly used the space everywhere, and it was very highly energetic, but at the same time I couldn't really find a concept. I couldn't see a connection necessarily between the skating and what was going on with the music. And so, unfortunately, I had to score this one down at 1.5 stars. In the future, and this goes for many of the ones I've already talked about, I think the choreographers in this competition really need to think about how they're communicating their overall concept for their piece for each of the challenges, and that would help everyone kind of up their scores. Well, thank you for listening, and I really enjoyed watching all the pieces tonight. It was excellent, and good luck to all of you. And see you next time.